So thank you so much for joining me for another video. If we haven't met before, my name's Michelle. I'm an artist and hand weaver, and I post here every couple of weeks. So I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up. Now today I'm answering a question that I get asked quite a lot, and thank you very much for leaving your comments on my videos. But the most asked question that I get is, how do you find your inspiration for your artworks? And someone also asked me about how I got into x-rays. Now usually when people ask me that question, my usual response is, I don't know. And I understand that is not a very helpful answer. But today's video, I'm going to try and articulate the answer, but I will warn you, I have not prepared this at all. I'm just speaking off the cuff. So if I'm waffling, if I don't make sense, I apologize in advance. Let me try and get my thoughts in order. So I guess the first thing to know about me is that I do have a very strong visual style, just not even my artwork, just me. So I think when you are trying to narrow down your visual language as an artist, you need to really look at who you are as a person. I think that comes before the artwork, to be honest. So there's no point in looking at the outside art world and thinking, you know, pieces about blah are very popular right now, I might do that. That is not going to develop a visual style. That may make you be able to make some work that could sell, but then you can't really keep it up because it's not really you. It's not part of who you are. So for me, the best way to get lots of ideas is just to stick with who I am as a person and what makes me feel good when I'm making it. So the other week I was thinking about this because I was challenged to think about what my artwork is about. And normally when people ask me that, I normally say, I make creepy tapestries, or, you know, I make work inspired by creepy medical imagery, or etc. And then I realized that's not what my work is actually about. And this is something for you to think about if you are trying to narrow down your visual language. What experiences have you had, either recently or when you were growing up, that have shaped the way you are now? So for me, all of my work actually stems from my childhood trauma. And even though that sounds like a super heavy thing to say, I can tell you that I've had so much therapy, counseling, hypnotherapy, all that stuff over the years that I am completely fine with it, and I can make jokes about what I went through. But the thing is, that's what comes through in all of my work. So if I'm going to be more specific, I can say most of my work is about a humorous look at my childhood trauma. So when people ask me what it's about, I'm not just going to say that outright, but I'm going to say that's what a lot of my work is inspired by. And the thing is, your experiences growing up always affect what you're like as an adult. So if you haven't had a lot of really difficult experiences growing up, funny enough, you may find it more difficult to be able to pinpoint what your visual language is going to be when you're creating your style. Don't wear your influences on your sleeve. Try to develop a visual style that is completely unique. Now I know most people would say, but nothing in the world is original, nothing is unique. But really, I don't believe that, especially when you're using an unusual medium like hand-woven tapestry. I find it is easier to make something completely original because of the medium you use and because of the visual language that you're using. There's always a different take to a subject. I guess that's another rule I have for creating your visual style, is that be authentic to yourself. Don't try and be influenced by what anyone else is doing. Don't try and be influenced by what's selling at the moment, what's trendy at the moment. So for me, my visual style, I really love, Gothic aesthetic. I really love goth music. Like, that is my aesthetic. So of course I'm going to love things like skulls and, you know, that kind of thing. So that's how I got into X-rays. And when I was looking at X-rays, I even have a picture of the day that I kind of got into it, if that makes sense. If I find it, I'll put it up on the screen. But basically, I was at Anita's parents' house, I was looking through their X-rays, and I was just realizing how beautiful they were. Like, they were really, really beautiful. And so I thought, I wonder if I could make artworks out of that. And I really hadn't seen anyone else doing that, especially not in tapestry, but even not many people use X-rays in their artwork. So I thought, okay, that's original. I'm going to try working with that. And so I made my first X-ray piece, which was Windows number 1. And this piece actually won the 2016 Port Pirie Art Prize, which was quite controversial apparently. Apparently the locals thought, why on earth did this piece win? But, you know, I was more surprised than anyone. So this piece did sell a few years ago as well. So I don't have the original, but I've put a picture of it on the screen for you. And then I decided to continue with that series because I had, you know, quite a few beautiful X-rays that I wanted to make. So that's how the whole X-ray thing got started. And then I was wondering, well, I've got so many X-rays that people have donated to me. I wonder if I could weave with X-rays. So when people ask how I thought of that, I don't really know how I thought of it, but the way my brain works, things just keep coming to me all the time. And I've gotten to the point now when I just have to keep writing them all down because otherwise I'll forget. And usually it's when I'm doing something quite mundane or repetitive. So when I'm actually working on, usually my hand weaving actually, because that doesn't take as much concentration as tapestry, or when I'm working my day job and I'm doing a really complicated spreadsheet, I'll suddenly be like, oh, I've got this great idea for a piece, and I'll have to quickly write it down. So I make sure I write down all of my ideas, even if I don't use them. And I tend to revisit the ones I've written down and then come back to them when it's the right time, because sometimes you have a great idea and then you think, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And that's how the Big Australia series got started, because for years I've wanted to do Larry the Lobster in Kingston, because every time we drive past it, I just think it's amazing, and I think, how can I make an artwork? So that was on my list from years before I actually made the piece. And when I made the piece last year, that's when I thought, I know how I can do that. I know how I can make it my visual language. I know how I can make it really creepy and sinister, and that's how that process got started. So it's not a case of having a number 1, number 2, number 3, this is how you think of an artwork. It's more living through the process, if that makes sense. So if you're having trouble trying to develop that visual style, I would say to look at yourself. Write down a list of how you would describe you. Forget about the artwork for the moment. How would you describe what type of person you are? What things are you interested in? What are the favorite things that you do every day? Like, what do you love doing? What music do you love? What movies do you love? What lights you up? What books do you read? If you are looking for a visual style and it's not coming to you instantly, like if it's not something that's just part of you, make a list. Make a list, and then on the other side of that list, write down what are the sort of common denominators of all those things you've written down. So, I mean, I'm pretty easy example because everything I love is pretty much just tunneled into a very small kind of genre. But most people aren't like that. I acknowledge that that's unusual. So for most people, you probably have a wide range of interests, but I'm sure that you can pull out certain things, even if they're just colors. Even if you're someone who always wears pink, for example. So there's an artist at the moment at the gallery, and she just paints pretty much in pink and yellow. And, you know, she does stuff just with those colors. And I sort of think that's an example of having a strong visual language just based on color, although her technique all works together as well. But if you want to base it on color, that's a really good place to start. You could say, well, these 2 colors are my favorite colors, and I'm just going to do a whole pile of work in those colors, and then people remember me, oh, that's the person who works in those colors. So the point being is that you want to create a body of work that someone can look at it and go, oh, that looks like so-and-so. What you don't want is for someone to look at your work and go, that reminds me of some other artist, because that's the kiss of death. You don't want that. Don't wear your influences on your sleeve. Good to note. If I told you who my influences were, you probably wouldn't believe me, because they're nothing like what I make. So I love artists like Grayson Perry, Hilma af Klint, you know, artists like that who don't work in any way like I work, but it's their thought processes and the way they're very passionate about what they do. That's what influences me, not the actual visual style of how they work. So again, think of that as well. Think of, what is it about the people you admire that you admire? Is it literally what they do, or is it the medium they use, or is it the colors? Is it the vibe that it gives? Because the thing is, all artwork also gives a vibe. So that might be something else to add to your list. So have I answered your question? I hope I have. If I haven't, please put a comment down below of what you would like me to elaborate on. I did do another video about finding your visual style, which I will leave a link to above. But I guess trying to articulate these things is very difficult, because most of the processes are worked out in here and in here, in my heart. So when you're trying to talk about them, and especially when I'm not very good at explaining things, well, I don't think I'm very good at explaining things. So when I'm trying to talk about it to you, I feel like it's all getting a bit convoluted and mixed up, whereas in my head it makes perfect sense. So let me know what you think. And also, if you have any other questions that you'd like me to completely mangle or waffle about, please leave them in the comments down below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.